Welcome to Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and tastemakers.
Brought to you by Chord Real Estate, your key to the heart of Nashville. I'm Steve Luther alongside my co-host Van Hoy.
Here we peel back the layers of Nashville's vibrant scene, sitting down with the innovators, creators, and leaders who shape our city. From music to business and everything in between, we dive into the journeys that have brought them to where they are today.
We're here to uncover the stories behind the success, the passion driving their pursuits, and why they've chosen Nashville as their stage. It's about the people who dream big, push boundaries, and make this city truly unique.
So join us as we explore the heart and soul of Nashville through the eyes of those who know it best.
Well, our guest today is Stuart Lackey, a distinguished leader in healthcare and technology. As the founder of Sound Health Advisory and a strategic advisor at Southern Orthodontic Partners, Stuart has a rich history in leading startups that dramatically changed the standard of healthcare through innovation and strategic growth. His extensive experience encompasses sales leadership, surgical device commercialization, and performance management across various healthcare settings. Stuart's commitment to excellence has propelled numerous organizations towards achieving remarkable growth and operational efficiency. Stuart, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Sounds so official.
I know. So formal.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's just kind of jump in. So talk to me about kind of the journey that led you to found Sound Health Advisory, and what's the core mission of that organization?
Sure. I'll back up briefly. We were just talking before we started recording about what brought us to Nashville. And so the radio business brought me to Nashville 24 years ago.
Okay.
Worked for a group of radio stations here on the sales and business side. And shortly after 9/11, I left radio and got into healthcare. And so through a series of companies and startups over the last 20 years or so, enjoyed an amazing ride, an amazing career. And then about 2 years ago, wanted to take that knowledge and the cumulative effects of working with just some tremendous people, tremendous leaders, and starting to try to help other organizations scale revenues of different sizes, healthcare organizations. So founded Sound Health Advisory to do that, and it's been a pretty interesting ride so far.
Well, what were you doing in radio? Were you like an announcer? Were you what did you do in radio?
So I grew up as a radio rat, Steve. My family owned and operated radio stations and television stations in Western Kentucky, and so I grew up. I knew early on. I watched my dad get up every morning. He owned the radio station, but he also did sign on. So he was up at 4:30 every morning, and I watched that, and I knew if nothing else, I had to get up early in life. Like, just got to get up early, right? And then the rest, you have to figure out. But so I was kind of a radio rat, following him around and learning that business, and kind of fell in love with it. And when I got out of undergrad, I went up to Cincinnati for a couple of years and got in the sales game and continued to do a little bit of voiceover work. But yeah, it was mostly on the business side for me. Now,
did that drive the naming of your company at all?
So actually it did not. That's a pretty interesting question. So Sound Health, I mean, there's a lot of things that are broken in our economy. I think you and I had some conversations about that before we went on there as well. But healthcare has got some major challenges, and Nashville being essentially the healthcare services capital of America, there's over 700 healthcare companies and related agencies based here in Middle Tennessee. And there's a lot of amazing innovation that's come out of Nashville, some awesome startups. Healthcare as a whole has got some challenges in front of it. So Sound Health is more of a knock to, making healthcare sound.
Right.
In some fashion. So
what's kind of the core mission? What do you guys?
So essentially we help companies of all sizes get up to speed from a revenue standpoint. If they need to kind of tweak their revenue model, if they need to hire salespeople, if they need to train salespeople, what do they need from that standpoint? Again, the cumulative experience of building sales channels for healthcare startups, mostly on the device side, but also on the SaaS and the service side, is where we can come in and really help shore up some things for companies. And so it can look a little bit different. It can be a limited engagement. It can be a more full-time engagement, which I had the opportunity to work with Southern Orthodontic Partners all of last year to do that. Mm-hmm. And it can look a lot of different ways, but that's really the core. It's something I've always enjoyed doing, is putting together a plan, building teams, building culture, and then realizing, a plan, if you will, a dream.
Now, I'm sure you've got, some consistent strategies across these businesses. What have been some of the key strategies that you implement?
I think it's true. Like in every business, Steve, it comes down to the people that are quote unquote on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was told and taught very early that you have to hire the right people. And in healthcare and healthcare device sales, it's a highly competitive industry.
Mm-hmm.
It is highly technical. And here's another thing. I had no technical or healthcare training. I was a political science history major in undergrad, but I had an intellectual curiosity to go out and learn. And I had some amazing mentors early on when I was just a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company way back when. And then my first device job that kind of modeled the way for me to say, hey, there are some best practices here. And if you reproduce best practices long enough, you're going to create a repeatable pattern that the marketplace will reward you for. And I got hooked on that. And so when I started building my own teams, I started parlaying and modeling the way, learned a lot of hard lessons along the way. But essentially, it comes down to hiring the right people and then giving them the tools to go out and be successful. Mm-hmm. So I would say that translates any type of business, any sales environment, be it real estate, be it healthcare. There are some universal truths, right?
Sure. Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Staffing is tough.
Yeah, and it is in this day and time, for sure. It's we use a lot of resources to find like recruiters, and so those can be amazing resources to help you locate the right people. And then you've got to create the culture, right? I mean, we used to say, and I think it's still true, people don't quit jobs; they quit leaders.
Right?
They quit people. And if you hire correctly and you align incentives, and in our case, create an amazing comp plan. And for some people, it's money. Some people, it's promotion. In a startup environment, there's equity opportunity. So it's really finding out what drives people for motivation, helping them get clarity on that, and then kind of unleashing them, once they're trained and they're ready to go. And so, that's always been exciting to me.
Now, healthcare, I'm sure there's a lot of hoops to jump through when you're, commercializing, surgical devices, introducing new tech to healthcare. What are some of the challenges you deal with?
How much time do we have? So it's very challenging. You've got to go through R&D. You've got to go through regulatory. You've got to make sure you've got a MVP, a minimally viable product, something that is safe and also efficacious in healthcare. And in today's environment, it can't just be equivalent. It's got to be superior. So if you're bringing a new technology into a hospital or any type of setting like that, they want to know, how great is it clinically? Is it much better than what we're using? And then how much revenue is it going to generate or save us as a hospital? And back in the day, to give you kind of a comparison, you could have an FDA approval letter. Think about this. And so FDA approval letter, go into a hospital, talk to the surgeon, and then as long as you had a letter, the hospital would let you bring the product in that day if the surgeon had a surgery that day and he wanted to use it, to trial it. Like it used to be that quick to get an eval. Now there's a massive approval process that can take weeks, if not months, if not years, to get products and services into hospitals. And there's more rigor around it. And there probably should be, but it's nuts.
Yeah. That seems a little scary. Just bring something in that quick, but
they used to let industry scrub in the cases. So you imagine your surgeons doing an operation, and there's someone that's very well trained, knows the product that they're using. So they're there to provide value and can provide value. They're highly trained in that sense, but they used to let lay people from the device companies scrub in to the surgery. Until that went awry a few times, and of course that got ixnayed. So that was years ago, before my time. So
tell me a little bit about your role with Southern Orthodontic. You're doing strategic advisement for B2B sales and marketing. What all is involved with?
Sure. So Southern Orthodontics is a company that's based here in Nashville, but is predominantly funded and supported by Shore Capital, which is a private equity firm based out of Chicago. They also have a Nashville office here. And so they have a number of companies in their portfolio, in their healthcare portfolio, and Southern Orthodontics is one of them. So what I did for them is basically create an entire sales playbook, a B2B sales playbook. And I didn't know anything about orthodontics, but again, those skills are transferable. And again, working in a model that allowed for me to take those experiences and hire a sales team and kind of build build templates and, playbooks and, messaging when you get in front of a customer. What's that look like? And then reproducing it. Right. And again, it comes back to people. So I think, we were able to do some really great things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is that primarily what you do with Sound Healthcare, or do you get more involved with?
So, yeah, just to clarify. So Sound Health Advisory is my company. And then I advise for other companies. So Southern Orthodontics, there's other companies that I work with, depending on the engagement. So SOP is short for Southern Orthodontics. That's one company that I've worked with, but there are others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it allows me to work with a diversified group of companies, and then really kind of customize what they need. And there's some that I just work with on, 2 or 3, visit engagement, and it's very specific and very honed, and they just want feedback on one specific thing. So It really just depends on what the need is. So,
well, what kind of trends have you seen? What's coming down the road in healthcare that
well, it's like everything else. It's AI.
Yeah,
everywhere. And so I've consulted with a number of AI companies. They're looking for help to hire and find salespeople and kind of what makes sense. And the challenge is that there's some great people out there, but AI is kind of a new deal. And so you're seeing applications, everything from when a patient comes into their first visit with a primary care physician. There's ambient technology like Alexa, if you will,
right,
but with high sensory, high acuity to be able to pick up everything just as you and I are talking here. So in the world of electronic medical records, many times if the doctor doesn't have an assistant and they don't have a similar type of dictation technology, they have to look down and take notes while they're talking to you. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, or someone in the room is typing, right? What some of these technologies allow the physicians to do in that setting is to be completely engaged, never to break eye contact, be present, and while this ambient recording is going on, will take specific notes and is getting to the point where it can be prescriptive from a diagnosis standpoint. They're not there yet legally from a regulatory, but clinical decision support, all of that is happening, and it's pretty amazing. But it's happening in the OR suite. There was an article I read from Becker's this morning. It's a healthcare journal, trade journal, and that there was a cohort of nurses out at Kaiser Permanente, which is a healthcare system on the West Coast. Think about HCA. It's HCA of the West, if you will. But the nurses had pooled and were protesting that AI was never going to take the place of nursing care, that human beings have to make that decision. So you're going to see continued disruption as that technology gets just, drilled or tightened and gets better over time. You're going to see that kind of thing. And it'll be interesting to see how integrated it gets. I suspect it's going to be a standard of care.
Yeah, I would think. We just had some exposure to it. My wife's mom had some kind of a scan done, and one of the doctors that we know is like, you really need to have that redone with an AI overlay.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? I'm like, well, AI reviews it and it picks up more stuff than people see with the naked eye, which it's kind of crazy that we've come so far in so short amount of time.
Yeah. I've got a colleague, if you will, who's an interventional radiologist, and that it's the same thing. It's those AI can act in concert with the surgeon. Yeah. And just, it's a 1-2 punch. It's going to be a while before I think it will receive the blessing of regulatory to say, okay, this is the definitive diagnosis, as in your case. But it's going to happen. And again, the speed and what that will afford surgeons and healthcare in terms of, just the speed of diagnosis, the accuracy of it, is going to be amazing. And it's going to displace a lot of jobs, but I think it will allow for new jobs to be created. So, yeah.
So you've talked a lot about people. Talk to me about leadership and coaching. I think those are some aspects of your career as well.
Yeah.
How have you used mentorship to help transform organizations?
Mentorship in terms of mentors that I've encountered, or now mentoring or taking that in mentoring?
Taking that and mentoring other people.
Again, I've been blessed to work with some fantastic leaders in healthcare. And I think the reproducible thing that has translated for me, there's a number of those things, but I think it again comes down to having the right people in place, but then getting specific with clarity of purpose. Because you can go out and you can call on lots of people every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, right? But then there's things that come in relative to targeting and who are we calling on? And once we're in front of them, what are we saying? And shortening the sales cycle. And there are universal truths in that, and especially in healthcare. You know your stuff, technically you're sound. You have rehearsed and role played and drilled, and you have your message is tight. You know what questions to ask. You can handle objections, and then you influence and convince. I mean, there is a prescriptive path as we train people in healthcare on how to move the sales process forward relative to the mechanics of that. But people, relative to leadership, people follow people that know where they're going. And again, I'll go back to, if you don't know why, first of all, people don't work for you. They have their own reasons. And as a leader, if you don't know why people are working for you, I mean, it's not a direct interview. Why are you working here?
Right.
But over time, if you're not invested in what their goals are, and you don't know that, number one, you're missing a huge opportunity. Number two, you're probably not going to have that person with you for very long.
Right.
And so I think it's investing in people and giving them a pathway and steering them where they want to go. And then, you model the way, relative to your own business. It helps if you've been successful in your own business, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're stepping back, you're modeling the way, you're coaching. There's a lot of leadership trainings that are out there. And most people, this is hard to admit for most of us, is that we're very competent in a lot of areas, but we all have areas that we need development.
Oh, sure.
Right. And you may be great at this, but there's other things that, okay, there's some opportunities here. And it's just because of maybe a lack of experience. And so as a leader, knowing that the same person that could be a rock star closer, maybe he's awful at organization and targeting. And it's like, okay, we do this really well, but maybe they need more support and direction over here. And,
right.
And so it's just fine tuning that none of us has arrived. And it's just really dialing in on people's development. I think if you build people, people will build a business. Mm-hmm. That's not mine. I borrowed that from someone. Yeah.
To that extent, do you still have your own mentors and coaches that you use?
Man, I was thinking about that coming over today. The person, I was in direct sales in college. I got into a direct sales organization, and this is going to date me a little bit. But the old guys, I was on the back end. Like, everybody knows who Tony Robbins is. Tony has there's a whole cadre of people that Tony was mentored by none more that he still credits. Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, not Jim Rohn, the sportscaster, Jim Rohn, to this day probably was the biggest impact in my career by CD, by seminar, to paint some very basic principles of business and life and things that are still true today. And I point people, Jim's stuff is still available now. Most of it's free on YouTube. Do you know I'm referencing Jim Rohn?
I just pulled up a bunch of Jim Rohn quotes the other day. I'll butcher it, but there was one that I brought up to our team. It was the problem with putting things off until tomorrow is when it comes, it's called today.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
And my favorite of his is the greatest value in life is not what you get. The greatest value in life is what you become. Yeah. And I will take that with me forever. And it's true. It's like, okay, all the stuff that we get caught up, it's like, what am I becoming in the process of doing whatever I've selected to do with my life?
Yeah.
And some people say, he would say, just don't get through the day, get from the day. Like, get something, like, what are you doing? What are you accomplishing? What's your goal? And
all 0 days.
What's that?
No 0 days.
No 0 days. Yeah. And so those are things. My dad was a great inspiration. Again, just his work ethic, the way that he treated people. And he was a staple of a small community that we grew up in. And so I got to watch him my whole life do some pretty great things in a small town. And so that was a huge influence on me. But man, there's some great mentors in a sea of Instagram and, social media and, instant gratification. It seems to, accelerate every day. There's some great mentors that are still available out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about Nashville being a great market for startups. What's some advice you'd give to new healthcare startups here in the area?
Start. Yeah. There are great resources. The Entrepreneur Center has been a staple here for, I guess, 20 years almost. I know a lot of people that have come through there that have incubated their companies with great resources, people that are mentors in the community. There's a lot of VC money that's, if it's not based here, it's connected to Nashville. There's some new opportunities coming very soon to Nashville from that standpoint. So I tell people all the time, and this has been true since I got here 24 years ago. If you have a great idea and you've done your homework, I don't care if it's a business or a charity, there are people in this town now more than ever that will help you realize that dream. Mm-hmm. And I believe that because I've experienced it myself, and I've had the opportunity to work with people and help them realize, their dream and get them started. They're great resources. You just have to get out. You have to get out, meet people, get out of your comfort zone, go talk to people, ask questions. And again, there's some disruptive things coming that I think make entrepreneurship a challenge because, there's a lot of processes that some of these new technologies like AI are going to solve, and they're going to take things out of the equation, but I think they will provide new opportunities for young entrepreneurs and leaders. Mm-hmm. We are starving, I think, for great leadership. I think there's always an opportunity for great leaders to rise up that are value focused. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a recurring theme with a lot of our guests, just talking about how collaborative of an environment Nashville is. Probably birthed from the music industry in some respects, but it's really interesting. I've lived in several places around the country, and this environment is different.
Yeah. It's an authentic. There's a lot of showmanship in this town, and that's the nature of the business and the beast. But there's an authenticity too. If you dig down a few layers, there's an authenticity. You asked me a question. I was relative to leadership, and just I think coming back to authenticity. I think having a lot of humility. Mm-hmm. And empathy of meeting people where they are, because everybody's struggling with something.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, everybody's human, and I've been humbled more than once in my career. But I think that's important for us all to remember as well.
So what are your long-term goals for Sound Health Advisory?
I just want to continue to grow it. We're looking for new clients all the time. If somebody's looking for help to scale the organization from a sales standpoint and don't know really where to go next, we have a variety of things that we can help with. So, and then I'm active and love to invest in startups as well. If it's a good idea, fortunate enough that I've been, had the opportunity to invest in a lot of early stage stuff here in Nashville over the last, several years. So that's also a hobby of mine. We kind of talked about, economics and finance a little bit in terms of new technologies as well before we got on the air. I have a lot of interest in helping other people kind of realize their businesses and their dreams as well. So
now, what's some of the fun stuff you've gotten to work on over the years? Assuming you can disclose with the NDA or whatever. But.
So no, for sure. So one of the first, so we live in 12 South, and two of my childhood best friends, started a vintage denim company, Imogene and Willie, from Henderson, and we helped. We were a small part of that business when it started. Restaurants, other healthcare companies. So some that have done well, some that are still trying the little engine that could. So, but just small pieces here and there.
So not just healthcare, you're investing in other things as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. If it's made, and I have intellectual curiosity about stuff, and it's like, okay, is it something that I would be interested in learning more about and wanting to, if asked, provide any feedback to the leadership team, and, you want to do stuff that would, potentially open other doors of discovery and, value creation and those kind of things. So, and that's honestly, that's what most founders are looking for investment dollars to keep the lights on and so forth. But they want expertise too, and so
Right.
I don't have a lot of it, but to the extent I can provide it, I certainly would like to. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, and I think business is business, right?
Yeah.
Across all industries, there's commonalities.
Yeah. Sure.
I think a lot of small business owners, when they get into it, it's so focused around the trade or the service that they're performing.
Yeah.
That they forget all about all the business stuff that goes along with it. But yeah, I think once you kind of figure that out, you can work in any industry. It's all very similar in what you're doing.
A lot of overlap.
Yeah,
for sure.
Any plans to expand outside of Nashville, or
Well, there's companies we work with that aren't based here for sure.
Okay.
So the great thing about Nashville, it's centrally located. You can get to anywhere pretty quickly if you need to.
Yeah.
But we're in a period. My wife and I, who's an amazing lady.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 6-year-old, and it is interesting how life kind of evolves. That you reprioritize things constantly, and
Sure.
so we have found being parents an amazing journey. And everything that we do is really with the design to try to spend more time with her, with our daughter, as much as we can. So Nashville's been great to us, and hopefully we can always call it home. Awesome. I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Well, if someone wants to get a hold of you, either for sound health advisory purposes or to invest in a business, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can hit me at Twitter. Stuart Lackey 1 is my username on Twitter. Soundhealthadvisory.com. I think that's an active website. Most of my stuff is just directly through email and through Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's a great place to ping me and message me as well. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, Stuart, it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Behind the Curtain, Nashville's Movers, Shakers,
and Tastemakers.
We hope you've been inspired by the stories of passion, perseverance, and innovation right here in Nashville.
A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journeys, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. And of course, our gratitude to Chord Real Estate for making this conversation possible.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.
Thank us?
Yes, you did.
Oh, I guess I did. Well, thank us. Okay.
Like I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform to catch every episode, and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more fascinating guests lined up, ready to share their insights and inspirations.
And we love hearing from you, so reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for who you'd like to hear from next.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making your mark in Nashville.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember,
I'm talking to Casey
it's
Kasem.
the people behind the scenes that make the city shine.
I love it. Take care. See you behind the curtain.